This is the Kitsune clan, a group of sword enthusiasts who like cosplay, reenactment, and historical martial arts. If you have similar interests, feel welcomed. It's Christmas, and so we want to explore the only weapon that has at least a slight connection to it, the deer horn knives. They are awkward and not easy to understand because most people think something like this here for their use. Let's test some of our already known movements that we have done with the sword with the deer horn knives. For example, here against angle 1, we could do a versetzen, which would also work against angle 2. As we have a pair of weapons, this reminds a bit to patterns that we have seen with the butterfly knives from Wing Chun Kung Fu. Let's be honest, if I would have the choice and could have a longer weapon than these short reindeer horn knives, I would definitely go for these. I consider reindeer horn knives in this aspect as an emergency thing or a last resort thing. The problem with the deer horn knives is their very, very short reach. Any normal knife is further reaching than these weapons. You might get the impression that the deer horn knives are something like a small shield, so a buckler, because of all the handguard. Yet also a buckler alone is tricky to use and it's good to have a long blade combined with it. So the short blade area is in fact already tricky when using displacing, so versetzen. Downwards it's okay, upwards as here it's already really tricky to hit the right timing. While you could consider this action an Unterhau, due to the short blade it makes no difference whether this is an Unterhau or a Versetzen. Even trickier concerning the timing is applying Krumpphau with these strange knives. In this case, I'm using the upper part for the deflection and the lower part for the attack. The real challenge here is closing the distance because the attacker has a much longer weapon than we have with the deer horn knives. The distance becomes even more of an issue when reversing the Krumpphau, so striking downwards with the short side or lower side and attacking with the upper side. You can easily see that I'm much closer here to the attacker than, for example, when performing Versetzen. So how can we deal with this distance issue? We can look at some other weapons where we had the same issue, for example with the Shuko or Tekagi. With the Tekagi we came to the point that for mechanical reasons it might be easier to attack the hand instead of stopping the blade. But hey, how does that solve my distance issue? To hit the hand, I have to get in even closer or not? In principle, yes, but also no, because if I simply move forward with the deer horn knife, I don't have to look so much for timing and I can simply straighten out my arm in the direction of the incoming hand. By this, I in fact gain distance. Not a hell lot though, but better than nothing. And of course, follow-up techniques such as disarms can be much easier after hitting the hand. I can also use the second deer horn knife for a kind of emergency block or securing shield. Hey, again a buckler reference. We will come to that in a bit more. Overall, there's still this butterfly Wing Chun type feeling when you move these two weapons. I think that's because it's two short weapons that are bladed and have a relatively good hand protection. Hence, I predict that if you use a pair of World War I knuckle duster type trench knives, they should give a similar vibe. Still, I would really love to improve the range situation. The butterfly knives at least have a bit of a range. These deer horn knives are really horrible in this aspect. And on top of that, usually weapons with a short range are easy to hide. Deer horn knives are nothing you can easily carry concealed somewhere. So there's of course a very simple solution to the range issue. We combine the deer horn knives with another weapon that has a decent range, using the deer horn knife as a kind of buckler. Well, not exactly, because the deer horn knife doesn't really shield our sword hand, but it's also not entirely like a knife, so somewhere in between. Strategy wise, I would compare it to what we have discussed for the Tekagi. But then, why the heck use deer horn knives at all? Well, let's take a bit of a wider comparison. The deer horn knives have been compared to the butlet. We had a recent video on that. Although the overall mechanics is very different, as the butlet is a monstrous weapon and the deer horn knives are so short, they share in fact some characters. For example, a high number of points and edges almost all around the weapon. Therefore, think of that one scene in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon and throw the thing. I think it's really something like a big shuriken. And any close combat application is just an emergency thing. With this, enjoy your holidays and see you next year.